All right, guys, welcome back. Jiu Jitsu Motivation Podcasts. My name is Greg Melita, black belt second degree, owner of Hampton's Jiu Jitsu. Today, I have a good friend of mine, Jay Page, is on the show. Awesome guy. I've known him for years. When he came to visit on the East Coast, just really helped me over the years too. Opening an academy, just different tips and tricks, and business ownership and all that. So really important that I wanted to get Jay on here. Also because he's a big part of the Globetrotters Association, which we've been a part of ever since we opened. We just love the vision, everything about it, belt checker, the whole nine. So, Jay, welcome aboard, man. Appreciate you coming on.
Hey, Greg, it's awesome to be here, man. It's been too long, man. Since I remember that day you were still a brown belt at the time.
Yeah.
So, man, that is definitely a very long time ago. I mean, I know I ran into you and some of the Kasai guys at Worlds one year in Anaheim, but that was it, man. One of these days I got to make it back east again, and stop by your academy.
Yeah, you make it back east, man. You definitely got to, anytime you want to do a seminar, you're definitely in there with it, man.
Oh, appreciate you, man. Appreciate you.
But yeah, man. So let's start. Actually, I saw you popped up on the BJJ Fanatics. So tell us about that. What are you showing on there?
So, yeah, man, the BJJ Fanatics thing has been it's been in the works for a long time. I've been wanting to do this, an instructional, whether it was with BJJ Fanatics or not. No, I've been wanting to do an instructional for a very long time. And right now, BJJ Fanatics is like the largest repository of instructional videos. And I've had some friends that have done instructionals with them, and I'm like, asking them, how'd you get your foot in the door? And they're like, yeah, just message them. I'm like, all right. So I was messaging and emailing. I even hit up Bernardo on Facebook, on Instagram, and it didn't get anything, I didn't hear anything. And then eventually, and finally, I saw that they had a link on their site to be an instructor. So I'm like, yeah, why not? I just, filled out the application, posted a video of myself teaching. And shortly after that, I heard back, so with that, and I was super honored to be, an instructor for BJJ Fanatics, again, because of the very large international repository of instructional videos. And again, it's also something I've been working on for a long time. And it's like kind of like a bucket list thing, that I wanted to do as far as jiu-jitsu is concerned. I'm looking forward to do more, but I guess, we'll see how this one goes. But yeah, this one is on nothing but chokes, in the gi. These days, I'm more like into my nogi these days, but just, for physical limitations and whatnot and injuries. But yeah, this whole thing, I love the gi. Coming up, I came through a very traditional Carlson Gracie jiu-jitsu school, and it was, very gi oriented. And, over the years, I fell in love with chokes, kind of because, Marcelo Garcia, for example, he was someone that I followed since, he beat Shaolin at ADCC in the early 2000s, and following the development of his game and the way he looks at jiu-jitsu and, what he picks and chooses to emphasize as far as submissions are concerned and his game, it kind of, influenced my game and my approach and how I choose to, concentrate and emphasize my time on. So over the years, he's like, is very into chokes, because again, no matter how big you are, you can't fight off that blood, that cutting off of the blood circulation, regardless of your muscles, and an analogy I like to use with my guys is like, you let a kid, wrap their arm around your neck and they sink in a choke, you're going to go out no matter how big you are. Right. But if you let that same kid put the arm bar on you, there's a high chance you could bicep curl out of it, So that's like, again, like chokes over the years has been like my go-to submissions over the years. And I figured, why not do that one as my first instructional? And I want to say there was probably like 50 something videos on that instructional.
Wow. Yeah, that's I mean that's a good point because it's like you said, it doesn't matter how big the guy is. I mean, you learn that from the origins of the art, where it's like, you know, a small guy defeating the bigger guy, technique over strength. I mean, it doesn't matter
100%.
who you are, you're going to get the choke in. And I mean, why not use what we wear every day? I mean, back in the day, you know, it was just the collar itself, grabbing the collar and chokes. Now, I mean, it's the evolution has gone so much. Lapels, I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't even realize they could use their own belt as long as it's tied according to the rules.
Yep.
You know? So all of that stuff, there's just, you're opening up so many things that still to this day have not been discovered, you know?
And it is funny, like, gosh, I mean, I want to say first time I thought about this, I was maybe like a purple belt, maybe or brown belt at the time. And I'm like thinking like I collect back in the day, you know, I'm going to age myself, but I used to collect VHS instructional tapes back in the day of competitions, instructional videos. And like while people collected like coins, baseball cards, and shit like that, I collected instructional videos and I watched them like people watch TV. And I was wondering to myself, I mean, this is it, you know. I couldn't imagine, you know, it could get any more complicated or technique can grow any more than it already is right now. And then you got people coming out like Samuel Braga with the Birimbolo, the worm guard, you know, and people really elaborating on a very, you know, basic guard like De La Hiva or reverse De La Hiva, and the options that they've, you know, come up with in those positions, and then integrating the lapel into those guards. And like right now, I'm at a point now, not thinking it couldn't evolve anymore. There's no way that it's it. But my question is, what are we going to see? Where's jiu-jitsu going to go? You know, what's going to be the new next big technique? You know, we've had the Birimbolo phase, the warm guard phase, the 50-50 phase. Now we have the leg lock phase. Now I'm like wondering what's next, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I ask that to everybody because I think one thing we have to all understand is when I first got into this art, just like you and everybody else, for me, it was 1999 and I watched the movie Choke, and I was already a karate black belt, and my instructor said to me, learn jiu-jitsu because you'll be the only guy that can stay on his feet. You know, it hit me like, you know, learn jiu-jitsu, you'll be the only guy to utilize your karate. And I was like, oh shit. You know,
right.
You know, like
exactly.
Nobody was thinking that back then. And then I just happened to, my karate instructor was renting space from the jiu-jitsu school I started in. And that's where I got my karate black belt, was in the jiu-jitsu I started in. And then I started doing jiu-jitsu. Like a lot of people don't know that. And then, you know, but jiu-jitsu to me, when I first saw it and when I first saw Choke, was all about what works. And it wasn't about, oh, we just do these 10 moves and that's it. It was always about, okay, this is what works. Oh, now this doesn't work because, you know, we're fighting against people that train now. You got to think there's people that are training. They just want to learn to defend themselves against some random guy who doesn't have training. And you know what?
Yeah.
This basic Brazilian jiu-jitsu is great for that. It's great for, you know, you're thinking, you know, a street attack with somebody that has zero training. And if you're thinking people that are trained, which nowadays more and more people are training. So, you know, you got to be, you know, along what's going on. You got to be with the evolution, if you will. There's now at 100%. At some point, maybe you can figure this out with me too. At some point, it became less about what works and became more about, oh, well, we don't want to be a part of this, you know, no-gi leg lock. Now the, you know, Americans kind of doing this thing. And now we got to preserve the traditional you know, moves and not do anything new. We shouldn't do anything new. We should only do things old. At some point, it got less about the evolution and more about preserving the roots, if you will. What do you think about that?
You know, it's funny that you say that because I want to say sometime last year, I forgot where I heard it and who said it, but when it was shortly before 2021, it was late 2020, and when the IBJJF released that new rule where they're allowing heel hooks, and reaping. I read somewhere, someone said that it's going to change, the environment of jiu-jitsu, where it's now going to separate, gi and no-gi, and they're going to be two completely different systems within jiu-jitsu. As far especially because of the techniques that are being developed with the gi and the techniques that are being developed with no gi, the worm guards, spider guards, lassos, and all that stuff, and the stuff that you could do with the gi, obviously you can't do with the no gi. So the greater the no gi game or environment grows, the larger you're going to start to see the disparity and separation between gi and no gi. So as far as keeping and reviving the gi, the jiu-jitsu and the gi, I don't think it's ever going to go anywhere, because most people, the hobbyists and everything, unless they're going to a very strict, no-gi school, everyone's going to be wearing a gi, unless no-gi's their goal. So, but and I remember like Gordon Reiner, someone said that, the gi's done, but I don't think it is, because there's a much larger population of people in the gi, and then the no gi. You still have, because there's a lot of people that just do strictly no gi, but those people that wear the gi also still do no gi. So the gi is not going anywhere, and I don't think the game in the gi and the jiu-jitsu in the gi is ever going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I definitely I heard on I forget where I heard it on, but they were saying how that the sport definitely leaning towards the professional level being sub only no gi, what
yes,
people are attracted to and what's paying the athletes.
Yes.
The hobbyists, when they start jiu-jitsu, they're starting with gi on.
Yep.
Which 100%. Is definitely gonna stay true. Like I know at my academy, where we have a lot of guys that like no gi and compete in the sub only. We have a lot of guys that prefer the gi. And it's both. I always try to have my techniques work for both. I mean, I know personally when I roll with a gi on, I pretend I'm doing no gi, and then if there's collars that are available, great, I'll have it. But I just do not want to depend on collars, especially with these knuckles popping out.
No. And that's what I was saying. Like I was mentioning earlier before. That these days, like I love no gi more than the gi. I'll do no gi more with the gi than the gi, just because I have really bad arthritis in my hands and my wrist, and just one hard day of gi work, it just kills my hands for days on end. And just like you were saying, there's very little distinction between my gi game and my no gi game, and that's something I really push on my guys, because the one thing that I really tell them is your time is limited on the mats. Whether you're there 3 days, 6 days, or 7 days a week, you're only there for an hour and a half, at the least, every training session. And why not maximize your time on the mats? Why have two completely separate games? Because if you have a game for the gi and a game for no gi, you're more or less splitting your time on the mats in half, developing one game versus developing another. So just like you, I really try to keep a very good no gi game for both gi and no gi. And like you said, if the collar's there, if the gi's there, I'll grab it to make my job easier. But I'm not going to rely on it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I think training for years in the gi, for me personally, it's just lost no gi, because you're pushed and you're dependent on the collars. Now, granted, closed guard, you want to get your grips, you want to pull your partner to you. I mean, all these things, lasso, de la Hivas, yeah.
Yep.
But just the mat time in, and everybody knows how important mat time is. You get to certain things. You get very used to depending on the collars and depending on your grips. So, I mean, just like everything else, I think, just like everything else, I think the answer is balance. The answer is balance.
Yeah.
I always do the fundamentals, and hey, the fundamentals can be done in both gi and no gi. I've been, told both ways. I was told for years, oh, you have to do the fundamentals in the gi because then that's you'll be better off. And then I've heard it the other way. I've heard a lot of big names say, actually, that's not necessarily true. You're actually learning how to control the body better when you're learning in no gi. You can't grab, so you hear it both ways. And I think there's definitely legit, meaning for both ways. So I think still the answer is both. I think still the answer is balance.
100%. And like too much of a good thing is always going to be a bad thing. And what I like, and with the gi, the way I've always looked at it is, it develops it develops and tightens up your escape game and defense game because of all the handles. And in no gi, it tightens up and sophisticates your attack game because of lack thereof. Your clinches have to be tighter. Your body position has to be tighter. Your squeeze has to be tighter. Everything has to be significantly tighter, especially when you're sitting there sweating. And the other thing too is over the years come to realize is that people have gotten too overly comfortable with the distance that gi gives you. I could hold I could hold the lapel, and I have a degree of control, but not really. The gi gives the student a very false sense of security that just because I'm holding them, that means I'm controlling them. But there's a crap ton of space between yourself and your partner or opponent that could easily be occupied and taken advantage of. So it's another reason why I really don't try not to rely on the gi these days, or for a long time for that matter.
Yeah, that's the other side of the coin too, is the whole thing about, MMA. And if you just, training in the gi, there's, like you said, there's so much space. And then when there's punches involved, you either want to be too far away or too close. So it comes back to balance. It really comes back to what's your goal, because I tell you what, over the years, it's changed. A lot of people don't walk in the doors anymore because they fear for their lives and they want self. A lot of people walk in the door, they're looking for a different form of exercise, and that's all they're looking for. Or they're looking for the multitude of benefits that jiu-jitsu gives: exercise, health, fitness level. I always say it's the best combination of anything. You're getting the relative body weight strength training. But some people, they could care less about self-defense. They want to have fun. They want to do something different, So it's all about somebody's goal, and you can't try to cookie cutter this into, a system or a way that somebody walks into the door. Like, everybody's individual. You know what I mean? Everybody's going to have a different way of learning, different way of understanding, and most importantly, a different goal.
100%, and you can still see there's a lot of cookie cutter style schools out there, like I had a prospective student come in, and he's in this trial right now, and he went to another school, did a trial at another school, and he was concerned. So he asked me, do I need to compete to earn rank? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. And I know the schools are still out there where you're not going to get ranked unless you compete. But the thing is, a lot of people are coming into it for, like you just said, the multitude of facets that you just, named. And maybe also for a hobby. No one's wanting to do this competitively or professionally. They, at least maybe when they first start. But, they're doing it for for fitness, a different way to get fit and healthy without the monotony of pushing around weight and sitting on a treadmill or on a bike.
Yeah, exactly. And then we're both at, over the last couple of years now, you mentioned the IBJJF legal. And I've said this on a couple of different podcasts where, I feel like they did that because they're losing a lot of business. And I feel like that was a money play move because they were like, oh man, people don't give a shit about nogi and IBJJF anymore. We got to legalize heel hooks to make it legit. And an interesting thing happened at the last Nogi Worlds I was just at. You didn't see a lot of this 50-50 seesaw action because you open up those legs in 50-50. Now that thing can be heel hooked. It totally, I think it exposed, now it exposed it for the better, but I think it exposed the IBJJF a little bit because it's actually deterring the sport when you don't allow heel hooks because now you're losing the realism there. And, you know, I've seen videos of Hickson, I've seen videos of Helio actually doing heel hooks because guess what? A tap is a tap, you know?
Exactly.
So I saw a totally different style of jiu-jitsu at the last IBJJF Nogi Worlds where, you know, brown and black belt, once again, Nogi adult is when they allow heel hooks, but you saw a totally different, you know, nobody was chilling in deep half. I mean, 50-50. And, you know, if you open up those legs, you better be moving. So it actually, it picked up the pace, you know what I mean? It picked up the pace and it kind of, I think, is opening people's eyes to the stigma of leg attacks because I know I teach my guys at a very early stage because once again, when I came up, we weren't allowed to do anything other than a straight ankle lock. We weren't allowed to learn. We weren't allowed to learn anything other than a straight ankle lock until brown belt. And then guess what? I go into competition and I don't know knee bars and I don't know holds, and all these other guys have been doing them for years. You know, it was just a totally different way off type of thing.
And I actually lost two very important matches because I was not aware or I wasn't in tune with the toe holds, you know, or the leg locks. Because again, I came up through a very traditional background under Carlson Gracie, and it was in the finals on two separate occasions. No. Yeah. One was Nogi Worlds, and the other one was in one of the American Nationals I competed at, and it was in the finals. You know, the guy pulls, you know, I see the foot, I go for a rolling toe hold, I leave my foot hanging there, catches my foot, I tap. Like clockwork in both situations, you know, and I'm not going to blame anyone, but I just blame the art of restricting leg locks at an early stage in development that caused me to not have that spatial awareness to get caught with a toe hold.
I tell you, I didn't start delving into any of these leg attacks until black belt, until Rich Byrne walked into my academy. I didn't know who he was. He didn't know who I was. And we met, and he started bringing in people like Eddie Cummings, who would train with us for a month straight and just use all of us old school guys as like testing dummies for his leg attacks. And we were just blown away. But I tell you, exactly what you said, the spatial awareness. When I started just doing heel slipping, and just doing that as a drill, that in itself strengthened my legs, strengthened my joints, you know, to the point where it benefited to me. And I lean so much to this side of pro leg attacks at an early age because I was so restricted at it coming up. And I equate it to when Royce Gracie fought a karate guy in the first UFC. I feel like that's how I felt when I was fighting Eddie Cummings. You know what I mean? Royce Gracie trying to like a karate guy trying to pull off an armbar in the 90s. That's how I felt. Yeah. You know, trying to attempt a leg attack with no fundamentals, having never been taught it. And, you know, I think a lot of the traditionalists think that these leg lock guys and you know, heel hook guys they want to just show heel hooks and they don't want to show the fundamentals. And that's not the case. Like, I teach everybody fundamentals. You cannot learn the new stuff without the fundamentals. I don't understand why 100%. They think so, you know, lapel guard, inverting and all this with C, and they just like, that's, you know, that's none of this stuff is being done if you don't know the fundamentals. That's like granted, you know, and it blows my mind. It blows my mind. You know what? Especially, I used this example the other day when I forget who I was talking to, and I was showing a heel hook in a basic and they was looking at me, and it was a very traditional guy, did no heel hooks. And I said, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you show me the first basic armbar escape you know? And it's the hitchhiker, right? Yeah. And You get into an arm bar and you flip your thumb and you roll out and you come up. And I said, okay.
Yep.
Because he was stumped on how to escape a heel hook. And this guy was a high-level brown belt, coming from a traditional school. And I said, why would a heel hook escape be any different than your hitchhiker escape? Why, why would you think your leg that's in a heel hook, why would you think you can just rip that out? Like, because I think that's what they think new students are they're going to get caught in a heel hook and they're just going to try to rip their leg out. But what about a student who gets into an arm bar? They recognize that this is a very dangerous position because they're taught at white belt. They're taught at an early stage,
And they put the time and reps in.
Yeah. So it blew his mind because I was like, yeah, a heel slip is the same movement. How you escape a heel hook. It's the same body mechanics movement as a hitchhiker, and it's just like blew his mind. So I don't know, went down a little bit of a rant there, but
no, man. And you know what? Honestly, it's the same feelings that I know thousands of people or maybe millions of people in the jiu-jitsu community feel, and it's just, and it's basically that awareness that needs to be developed, the exposure also, to the game itself is what's going to protect people, and people, you get so injured, you get injured easily. But I mean, honestly, you could get, granted the degrees of injury versus your knee versus your elbow, the two completely different things, but they're both very severe injuries. I don't care how you look at it. It's going to keep you off the mats. But it's inexperience is typically what causes the injuries. The inexperience of the individual applying the technique on a heel hook and just ripping it, and not having control of the limb versus someone that doesn't have experience escaping or trying to escape and just end up turning the wrong way, and just like with the example that you used with the hitchhiker escape, because we drill the arm bar over and over and over again, we know the basic mechanics of it, and we know which way to turn. And like you said, what's the difference between teaching that and teaching the heel hook and the escape and the defense of the heel hook? Because the lack of experience is what made the lack of exposure is what made like games like the Berimbolo and the 50-50 and half guard or spider guard, even as far back, way back when, and that people were not exposed to, didn't know how to deal with it. But now over the years go by, now we know how to deal with it, and it's because we experience it. And I think, and I personally feel that leg locks are no different. They need to be developed from a very young age.
You brought up an awesome point. It's like, the knee is way more like apt to getting injured than say an arm. And that's a great point a lot of people bring up. But then I flip it and I'm like, well, wait, isn't that the more importance and the reason why we should be teaching people early?
100%. 100%. Exactly. To protect your knees.
It is a lack, isn't it? It's a lack of knowledge by the instructor when they just avoid it and they don't want to show it. Or how about bringing in a specialist? Admitting that you don't know this stuff.
I mean, I love leg locks, and when I first got in, before I even got into jiu-jitsu, I got into Shuto, which was like a Japanese style of catch wrestling, or a Japanese version of, let's say, luta libre, because everyone knows what luta libre is. And I was doing leg locks way back when, fell off because I went under Carlson Gracie team. Now, I brown belt them, getting it all back. And God, I totally lost my train of thought.
All good. We can chat that out.
Jesus Lord. But no, I got it. I remember. Sorry. So even though I'm experienced in the leg lock game, I'm not the best by any means. I have an okay leg lock game, but because of that, I think a lot of instructors have to get their egos in check and follow that same train of thought or that thought process that they don't know everything, and again, check their ego and bring someone in. You know, I've had Lachlan Giles, I had Craig Jones, I've had even brown belts that were much better than me and knew more than me at the leg lock game. I've had them at my academy numerous times for seminars just to develop it, you know, and I'm always trying to study. And I think that's the biggest issue with a lot of the old school, you know, the old school or the old crew or guard is they don't want to learn, or they want to think they know everything.
Biggest lessons from the old school is check your ego at the door, right? And are we actually really
100%, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point. So real quick, I'm going to bring this in.
Yeah.
I just want to show everybody here. Let's see what we got. If I can bring in the little intro video that's on. This is Jay Page's BJJ Fanatics Enter the Sandman, which is obviously directly related to chokes and Metallica. All right.
Yep. I love Metallica growing up.
Oh yeah, me too, man.
I still love Metallica. I still love music.
Yeah, I'm rocking all the remastered Black Album stuff too. Let's see here. I'm gonna show this one video. I can figure this. Oh, it's on the other one. Oh, there we go. So if I could blow this up.
Okay, guys. So same sequence. Okay. Same entry. Now we're just going to be going over his potential.
You seen this on your end too?
No, I'm not.
We just went over. So I'm here with my partner. Okay. And
I just said, you see it click to exit full screen.
Okay. Now.
You see it on your end?
Saying earlier,
no, I don't.
Okay, let's see here.
To place my hand right here on the side of his neck and then grip. Okay. Now, if he sees this coming, 9 times out of 10, he's going to block this from coming in. So what I'm going to do when he blocks that from coming in, I'm going to grab the sleeve. I'm going to drag that arm all the way across, bringing him up onto his side here, okay? Now, from here, I'm just going to pin his shoulder down, and then I'm going to place my left hand on the back of his tricep.
This is like a Bravo, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a show from a Bravo grip. It's just
I'm going to push.
It's just a different approach, I guess. You know, like just kind of a stiff arm. I just, you know, stiff arm my arm on the back of the tricep as I pull on that the lapel.
I gotcha. Yeah, so you got that one there. So this is a little teaser from BJJ Fanatics, Jay's instructional here. So yeah, you guys can jump on there, check that out. Make sure you do that. There's a lot of different instructionals on BJJ Fanatics. Obviously, it's one of the biggest ones. So yeah, I think that's awesome, man. Yeah, I saw that recently when it popped up. I'm like, oh shit, he's right on BJJ Fanatics.
Yeah.
So let's go into a little bit about your involvement with Globetrotters. What was the whole mission of Globetrotters? How'd you get involved with them, and how'd that all come about?
So, you know, it's funny that, you know, you bring that up because, like, I didn't know him, but I knew of Christian long before he had the Globetrotters. I followed his site. You know, he had an old blog. I want to say he still has it up, but it was called Shogun HQ, and he just like this the articles of jiu-jitsu training, you know, yada yada yada, and he used it as a means to help himself plan his trip around the world. So he has a book out there called the BJJ Globetrotter, and basically on the Shogun HQ, he used that as a means to help him plan the different places he's going to go to, and also keep everyone up to date. And like while he was traveling, of what he's doing, where he's going, his experiences and whatnot. So it's almost like he took everything. It was like his journal while he was traveling, and he took all that stuff that he had on that blog and put it into his book. And if you haven't read that book, you know, you should give it a read. It's a great story. And it, you know, it definitely brought me, I think, closer to him, closer to the Globetrotters and their views and whatnot. But I started following him while he was on his, you know, his 1 year plus whatever sabbatical of jiu-jitsu training around the world and the globetrotting. And when he came back and he was done with all that, you know, someone suggested he start a team, you know, and I'm sure there, there's more to it, but then that's, shortly after he got back, he started the BJJ Globetrotters, and then, he didn't start so much of, it wasn't so much an affiliation that he started. It was just a group of like-minded schools, and individuals. It wasn't the whole competing under the Globetrotters and the affiliation thing wasn't the goal, and it wasn't even a thing way back when. And when he first opened that, I would because I followed him and I loved his views of it. I think it was one of the first maybe 10 schools to join the Globetrotters.
Wow.
And and it's been supporting him and the Globetrotters ever since, and their views. And I try to model a lot of my views and training and the atmosphere of my academy to the Globetrotters and their views. And that's how I kind of
what were some
orientate.
views? What's crazy is the views of the Globetrotters. Like, to somebody that doesn't train jiu-jitsu, those seem like what should be normal views.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I feel like when people hear, Globetrotters was so different than anything else, well, why? Like, I mean, and then to be a travel-friendly school, have travel-friendly environment, it sounds crazy to me that there was a void created that Globetrotters had to fill. Just like there was a void created where then, leg locks had to come because IBJJF wasn't making them legal, whenever there's a void, it will be filled. And I think some people are amazed that a void was created to where an organization like Globetrotters had to happen, where how come jiu-jitsu wasn't this travel friendly, this type of more welcoming environment? What are some of the views?
And it's funny that you say that, because jiu-jitsu wasn't travel friendly because, again, the old guard of jiu-jitsu, where cross training, sharing ideas, or the fear of stealing technique or games was a legit fear, because they didn't have the YouTube and the readily available amount of information that we have today, so cross training, jumping schools, it was very frowned upon. You're called a crionch, and that's what, and then that stigma that was placed on that tribalism that was placed early on in jiu-jitsu is what I think created that void itself that Christian filled with the BJJ Globetrotters. The cross training with people from many walks of life, different teams. You didn't see any of that until Christian came around.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%. That's exactly why I jumped on as soon as I saw it. I opened up Hampton's Jiu-Jitsu. I immediately signed up. I got the travel-friendly Jiu-Jitsu Academy sticker right on my door.
Nice. Nice.
We got the flag. We hung that up. I mean, that to me, the fact that we needed something like that along said what was wrong with the current state of jiu-jitsu. And you're right, back in the day, cross-training was frowned upon. It was like, don't warm up before the match. You don't want the guy to see what moves you're doing. Like, I tell everybody all the time now, there's no secrets in jiu-jitsu anymore. Everything's on YouTube. You don't got to go to Brazil to seek out techniques. It's all about how you run the culture at your academy and what you tell your students. And I tell all of my students, I say, go out there. The way to train and cross-train is train everywhere. Be respectful of your home academy. That's where you're going to pay your tuition to. But train wherever you want. I had just recently somebody visited my school and said, my instructor said, you need to have my permission to leave, and you don't be, make sure that you can always learn stuff at our school. Like, if you have to say that to your student, you're not doing the right thing. You got to look inside yourself and what you're showing and what you're preaching. So, and just to jump in there too, we just had an all women's open mat at Hampton's Jiu-Jitsu, and the post was all academies welcome, free events.
Amazing.
Ego check, meaning an open mind is required. We had sponsors, giveaways, and it was the first event of its kind. And we had 11 to 12 academies from all over Long Island. It was never done on Long Island before. Now,
that's amazing.
A lot of schools on Long Island have tried to do a women's class or develop a women's team. But this is the first that I've seen that has been all academies welcome. It was that from the start to get everybody together from all academies. And that to be said in 2021, the first time doing that, now we're doing it every month. So.
See, that's awesome. That's amazing, and it's like developing, a universal community in your area, and I like to think that's what makes the jiu-jitsu community in Arizona fairly unique in comparison to a lot of other states. Like I mean, again, excuse my ignorance because I don't know. I'm not familiar with the communities with every other state. I can only assume or speculate that it's, a majority of it is little to no cross training or some. But in Arizona, we're cross training is very welcome and very open here, and not just within our area, but across the state itself. I have guys cross train that when they're visiting Tucson, they'll cross train there. They'll cross train up north at another academy that's under another team. I have a Sunday open mat that is the largest open mat on Sundays in the whole state, where I have tons of people from other academies that just come, because at least myself, I like to think that no one has to worry about me poaching their students, because I don't, there's no need to.
Mm-hmm.
I look at us as one big giant community. Do I have that fear that if my student goes to another academy and they're poached? No. Let them try to poach. I personally, I feel confident enough that they won't go. And if they go, so be it. I'm not, no skin off my back. And
losing students, then you probably don't have significant numbers at your academy. if losing a couple people is going to make or break you and you can't afford whatever, then that's an issue that your academy has, so I feel like it's small-minded to think like that, and I feel like there's issues if you do think like that with how you teach and how you run the culture at your academy. And I think Globetrotters is exactly the vision that jiu-jitsu should be on. And then Belt Checker, which I encourage all of my students, everybody in jiu-jitsu to get on, is such a great community-based, peer-reviewed way to legitimize people's belt ranks free. I mean, you can support them if you want, but it's not mandatory. Very opposite than what you see out there in the regulations of, say, IBJJF or anything like that. And we've seen recently, what was the latest? I mean, you don't see it that much anymore. I don't think anything's been going on with that with Globetrotters. Like, Globetrotters is an affiliation that you can sign up at to fight in IBJJF events. Can that still be done or no?
No.
Okay.
Unfortunately, no. And Christian went back to the IBJJF to
there's no NDAs right here, right? No NDAs. no non-disclosure agreements.
No, because he posted it publicly, and the IBJJF, he tried to rectify the situation with, and try to come to some common ground to where if he could follow a certain guidelines that they would agree to, and he'll do it. But they didn't even give him that chance. They didn't give him a chance as to have discuss any kind of discussions to make it work out. But and that's what happens when you have one king of an organization sitting on top of atop of the mountain, and and it's unfortunate because they don't take that power. The people in the community give them that power.
Mm-hmm. You vote with your dollars. You vote with your dollars.
Exactly. And and I think that's what the Globetrotters kind of threatened, that power, that association, that affiliation threatened their power. And the same thing. And I think also we might see some kickback, from the IBJJF event, maybe, I don't know if soon or later, about Belt Checker. They make their comments. I'm sure internally they've made their comments within each other, but who's to say they won't make it a public thing or whatnot, or try to defame, the BJJ Globetrotters and the belt checker, and it is all because it threatens their power, and their grasp and their hold of being the go-to organization as a guiding guidelines for all the jiu-jitsu. And the thing was, the IBJJF it's not new, and it's not old at the same time. Who gave them the power to say, this is how long you have to stay at rank. This is how old you have to be, yada, 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 and it wasn't like that before when I first started, but people gave them that power. The community gave them that power to do that, and you see even, some of the best jiu-jitsu competitors in the world, you're seeing them having a, get, kickback or throwback from the community, from the IBJJF about their time in ranks. Perfect example. The first ones we saw was when the Meow brothers first got their black belt. They couldn't compete for that first whole year, because they weren't registered at Brown. I'm like, come on. They're some of the best competitors in their tournaments in the world. Yeah. And they make them do that. It's a power trip. And then more recently, the Rutola brothers, those kids are amazing. And they caught such flack for when they were promoted they're promoted too young, but then you had another group saying, why don't you promote them? They deserve it. They're kicking the shit out of adults, why not give it to them? So it's crazy that we, as a community and as a people, that we gave the IBJJF that power to basically dictate all that.
Yeah, well, that's the void, like you said. It created a void for now Globetrotters and belt checker. Now, granted, when we were coming up, we needed that kind of governing body in the beginning, really for the rule set to get everybody to start off. Okay, and then they're doing belts this way, but then they just got way too controlling with the details of it, stopping people's progress, demanding, the memberships, money, and so I think at a certain point it just got way too out of hand, and they actually were stifling the growth of the sport. And I think they were exposed to that not only in the rules set recently that we spoke about, but in the way they're handling, the business of promoting people and, this is why you don't get this rank or that. And now you're not a second degree. You can't promote a black belt. And this is why. And, you weren't a member as a brown belt, so now you can't get a black belt certificate. This is all stuff that, and there's schools out there that just don't like, a lot of people follow IBJJF, but now I'm seeing a lot of schools people aren't even registering their black belts.
No, they're like, peace. There's no need, because I agree with you 100%. We did the jiu-jitsu needed the IBJJF their tournaments to grow and bring jiu-jitsu to where it is. Now, do we need their guidelines for jiu-jitsu and rank? To a degree, yes, 100%. What we didn't need was everything else that followed with all those stipulations, the unnecessary stipulations, and like forcing someone to stay an extra year at black belt, before they get their first degree, because they didn't register their belt as a brown.
You should have stayed guidelines. Should have been guidelines from
the thing, exactly. And the thing is, it's not something that's common knowledge, especially with students coming up. And granted, maybe you should tell your instructors, the people that are you're ranking, maybe it's a good idea. I tell all my guys it's a good idea to get their membership cards, especially at Brown. But it's not common knowledge, and to be so strict and really adhere people to that, again, I'm just going to go back to it being a power trip,
Oh yeah.
And all of it, unnecessary. the guidelines for sure. Yeah, I agree with it. It's necessary, and to a degree, and them coming in to grow jiu-jitsu. I agree. Yeah, we needed that, but now I think, like, to your point, what you were saying about, no, you're not seeing a lot of newer black belts jumping on the IBJJF bandwagon, because today you don't need the IBJJF to make a name for yourself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many other competitions, like super fight style competitions, small sub only competitions that people are making their name through. Perfect example, everybody knows Gary Tonin, right? But he didn't have the greatest IBJJF competition career, but he's one of the most well-known competitors out there. And you don't see every black belt world champion competing in ADCC or winning ADCC, or even winning the trials for that matter, because it's, the time at rank thing that really they put into place that's one thing I think is unnecessary, because if someone has a skill and to win certain divisions, why hold them back to and hear them to that, those ranks, like we wouldn't have guys like Mike Fowler, who else, Gio Martinez, Boogie, or Richie Martinez, or my professor Kaio, and a number of other people that have gotten their black belts in less than 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Had the IBJJF, had we given the IBJJF the power that they have now back then, there's no way they would have gotten their black belts this quick then, but because it really didn't exist the way it does today, back then, they got their black belts in less than 5 years, and they deserve it. They winning major tournaments, multiple time world champions, so I think, yeah, we needed it. And then again, going back to what you said, that they created a void that, other people are gonna fill, like Eddie with his EBI sub only competitions, and everyone else that followed.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, and separately, it woke me up a little bit more, not only when I saw it in the rule sets, being involved with Kasai, because they, they wanted to be able to bring sub-only and IBJJF guys together because they were so split. So they had the sub-only rules and what was legal and not. It was no-gi, but then they had IBJJF points, but they made body triangles 4 points and things like that. So that was the goal of Kasai, and we're definitely back. But like, it opened my eyes, because people always say, I always heard coming up, oh, if only jiu-jitsu was in the Olympics, it'd be amazing. And I totally flipped my view on that. It would not be
absolutely
amazing.
Not.
But really, what had me realize that was that in order to be in the Olympics, the governing body of the sport needs to be a nonprofit organization. IBJJF is private. It's private for profit. And granted, should they be making a profit? Yeah, but not to the point where you're going to stifle the sport. But I think people don't even realize why jiu-jitsu can't be in the Olympics. What may be, and I think what should be in the Olympics more than anything else, is the submission only, submission, no-gi submission grappling, creation, which is one of the original sports there was. So I feel like that would be something that would be more likely to be the Olympics, but definitely not jiu-jitsu. With the, the governing body needs to be a nonprofit organization that controls all the other governing bodies individually in the country. Like, people don't realize
100%. 100%. And, and even beyond that, I think the IBJJF with their no-gi tournaments are going in the right direction by adding heel hooks, because now the matches are a lot faster. But with a gi, no, absolutely not. It's not a spectator sport. And the Olympics are only going to take in, the IOC is only going to take in sports that could be spectator sports. And when you have black belts and people in your own sport, they can't sit there and watch jiu-jitsu competition. That's a problem. And there's no way you're going to find it in the Olympics if gi jiu-jitsu continues in that, continues on that same path. And my other opinion with, the jiu-jitsu being in the Olympics, personally, not to say that it can't, but I personally feel that I wouldn't want it to, just because of what I saw it do, what the Olympics did to judo. I don't want to see what the IOC did and the rules and how now every school in the world, as far as judo is concerned, molded their curriculums, their games, and everything around the IOC's, rule set that they instituted by taking away so much. It's no longer judo. In the traditional sense. And excuse me, and it's kind of like what, what's happened over the, past decade or so with the IBJJF, no longer than maybe past 2 decades, that every school has molded their curriculums and everything around the IBJJF, their guidelines and whatnot.
Yeah, I actually just was just explaining that to a student, because we had a bunch of people now doing the nogi worlds and now gi worlds, and then we have one student who's predominantly sub only, and then we were going over like, wait a minute, so if somebody's in your side control, they pass your guard, and you do a great timing movement and bump and bridge them over, and then now you're on top of them. You don't get the points for that because you don't have a guard, a half guard, you don't have a sweep, point. So now you're discouraging people to get on top. You're encouraging them just to return guard.
100%.
So you look at the long-term effects. I even go so far, in my analyzing and arguments about the point system, where I get it. You're trying to say, okay, I passed your guard, I'm getting 3 points because if this was a street fight, I could sit up and punch you. But
yeah,
I sat up and punched you, I made enough room for you to recover, your guard. So, and also, and in addition to that, I don't know if this is, it's just how I think though, but I feel like if I mount you and I hold you down there for a minute and I'm not able to submit you and you get your guard back, I don't feel like I deserve those 4 points.
Yeah.
I feel like, you can really overanalyze these things. I get it. You want to reward position because position leads to submission. I get it. But now it's a sport. It's not a street fight. So people are going to strategize to win. So unfortunately, BJJF rules, of course the goal is submission, but people train and people match other people's belt level. And you're going to get to the point where you got to play position to play your points. How many years, Jay, have we heard people come to us and they come home from a tournament and they're like, the fucking guy didn't want to do jiu-jitsu, he just scored 2 points and held me down. I'm like,
numerous times.
I tell the guys all the time, so why don't you fucking do that? You score your points and hold the guy down because it's a sport,
100%.
So it's just interesting to see where everything's going. It's you really don't know where it's going to go from here. You definitely see the professionalized type of industry it's become, because the professional people, there's always going to be your local level IBJJF tournaments. People love the gi, they want to do that. Then now there's going to be the professional level is predominantly no gi, the guys that get paid to fight. People want to see sub only, people want to see submissions, going for the submission. But I think there's still a lot to be done with rule sets. We can learn a lot from judo and wrestling. We can learn a lot because, to be honest, I'd rather watch Olympic level judo or collegiate wrestling or Greco than I would a seesawing 50-50 gi jiu-jitsu match.
Exactly.
I really feel like if you take sub only and you add 1 point for push outs, so people avoid going to the edges, you add 1 point for escapes where somebody on bottom stands up, he got out, now you have to hold people down. I feel like if you add sub only rules, but with points being those points,
that'd be interesting.
There's some room to do stuff with rule sets that I have ideas about, but it's just interesting to see, where the sport goes from here. But clearly what you can argue is there's a split. There's a split in jiu-jitsu.
100%.
Whether it's gi, no gi, whether it's old school, old guard versus new, and you can't even say that because I feel like they have a different view of what new school is. Now, this whole American jiu-jitsu thing is like a void, another void that's created for, the Brazilians not realizing that, listen, you created this. We are black belts under you, and we're progressing the art. Now, it's up to you to embrace it,
Yeah. You hear a term now being thrown around, wrestling up.
Oh, yeah.
And you see a lot more, it's always been something that's you could recognize in the stylistic difference between our jiu-jitsu here, Japan, South America, or Brazil, and Europe is that our jiu-jitsu here in the States is more wrestling based. We utilize a lot more wrestling. And what's funny is we used to see, Marcelo Garcia had that game 2 decades ago. He was arm dragging, single legging everyone and wrestling up before that he was even a term. And it's funny how it's taken this long for that game to even catch up, that people are now really recognizing the value in trying to wrestle up off of your back. And what I think is what brought that to the forefront is, the growth of the no-gi game, because I could imagine it's very difficult to wrestle up when someone's anchoring themselves to your gi, but wrestling up in no-gi is a lot easier. And and then, that whole separation, I don't think it's so much. I mean, there's a separation between gi and no gi, but I think the even bigger separation is the separation between the rule sets and the separation between sub only and point tournaments. Which brings I love organizations like Grappling Industries and AGF. I forgot the promoter's name of Grappling Industries, but they're very open with their rule sets, which is more or less all the way down to blue belt is I believe is you could do anything submission wise. And what I love is their double elimination. No other competition does that. And I know Chris Carlino and Brandon Quick that own AGF. Those guys, they're always trying to stay ahead of the game, as far as their rule sets are concerned. And one idea that I loved, you kind of touched on it, was when you escape from bottom or reverse the position and get on top, you don't get points for that because you weren't in a guard, but you ended up in a very dominant position. So because you end up in a dominant position, why wouldn't you get points? It's one thing if you reverse the position and fall into their guard. I get that. Yeah, no points. But, this is something that Chris and Brandon have been talking about for a while, giving points for reversals, and I wish more.
I believe they do that in ADCC, right? There's an ADCC.
I think so. I believe so. But that's something I think that more organizations need to really capitalize on, because going back to the roots of how the IBJJF came up with their point structures and how their, the hierarchy of the point structure was all based on positional dominance. And so if you're gonna use that as a reason for point allowance, then why not give someone points for reversing a position, getting out of a disadvantaged position, and ending up in a dominant position? What happens if he escapes and ends up in mount? Yeah, you're going to give him the point for the mount, but why not side control? It's still a dominant position. You could rain damage down on, because again, they want to say positional dominance for self-defense. Then give them the points for reversing the position and getting into side control. Yeah.
It's funny you talked about that. How much wrestling is utilized in American Jiu-Jitsu. I have, walking into the locker rooms, I have a picture on the wall, and it's of two guys in a freestyle wrestling match. One guy is deep in a double, and people walk by sometimes. You know, some of the old school guys I train with, they're like, "How come you have a picture of this freestyle wrestling on the wall?" I said, "Dude, that's Holmes Gracie." So I got an awesome picture of Holmes in a freestyle, you know what I mean, on the wall. For that reason. You want to talk about preserve the roots? Well, the roots of jiu-jitsu was cross training.
Yeah.
You know,
he was way ahead of his time, you know, and I don't know why no one continued with that.
You know? I know that's, and I think the other point that I wanted to bring up is you see a lot, even like on the Flow Grappling WNO show and the commentators and stuff, that the language that the commentators use today. And let's face it, there's only commentators now recently in IBJJF tournaments thanks to Flow Grappling. But on the sub-only shows, the language that they're using is from that new school no-gi Danaher-esque. Everybody's saying, "Oh, look at that leg entanglement. Look at this wrestle up. You know, look at this this entry." Nobody said entries a few years ago. Nobody said wrestle up a few years ago. Nobody said leg entanglements. You know, just the language of the professional level of our sport is changing, and people are falling on it. You know,
and you know, honestly, thank God, you know, for and all props to Eddie Bravo and for really being, you know, spearheading all of this, you know, and it's because of him.
It was like the first one, like, holy shit, this could be a professional level, single matches event. And then you're never seen these rules before because we've only known anything but IBJJF, you know?
Yeah. And thank God he did that, you know, and now people, you know, people can make money off of sub only. I mean, Grant, I know like that we, you know, Metamoris was around. But he you know, that's a different story for another podcast probably. But but like the true, you know, the true daddy, you know, daddy of them all is EBI. You know?
And even Hickson had an event for a while that really he changed. It was the same points. Oh no, it was like 1 point for positions, but 3 points for submission attempts.
Yes.
But I remember watching it and I was like, wow, why, you know, you should be awarded for attempting a submission for what would be an advantage in IBJJF. You know what I mean? So we're seeing still experimentation. I think there's a lot of experimentation to be done. It's interesting to see where jiu-jitsu is going to go. Now, everybody and your mother has a Patreon, has a YouTube channel. You know, you're seeing instructionals where it was frowned upon to look at shit on YouTube. You remember? You don't look on YouTube. Oh, you're gonna develop bad habits. Like now, everybody is on, you know, buying BJJ Fanatics videos, and I think because that's why us here at Jiu-Jitsu Motivation, what we're starting with ReviewMyRole.com is because everybody can download instructionals, but how about if I'm sending a video of myself rolling and a high-level black belt such as yourself or a big name sends you back critique with audio?
That would be amazing.
You know, so we have that set up right now at reviewmyrole.com. So we're trying to launch that. I think that's kind of like another trying to further the sport via the whole, you know, technology that we're seeing overtaking it with YouTube. And you can download 20 hours of instructional. But like we said, you know, everybody's an individual. And I think what we have at this reviewmyrole.com, a part of JJM, we're trying to push that with people send in videos of them rolling. And then I send a video back of audio critique. And then they can request Jay Pages send them a critique back on a site. So anybody that's been on a podcast, they can request to, you know, watch.
Oh, that'd be amazing. That would be amazing, you know?
Yeah.
And it's crazy. You know, it's funny that, you know, more and more people, it's becoming a thing. And right now, I think you guys are now you're at that grassroots stage of, like that void, you know, you guys are gonna be filling a void that's available right now. That's starting, you know, people sending videos to other instructors to critique and give them feedback. That's nothing new. People are, there's instructors doing that on their own, within their own online, you know, instructional sites, you know, but nothing to the degree where they really try to blow it up and open it up to everyone.
Yeah.
So in typically it's, it's not something that's marketed. And by you really putting, with your organization, putting this out there to the world, I think that's going to really, you'll start to see an increase of more and more and more people sending in their information, which, again, going to help grow, your organization and your tournament software. And, and then you'll see the skill that I honestly feel when this takes off, you'll see a really high increase in skill development of the student base, and you'll see the level of competition go through the roof, because now you'll have students around the world not only having the eye of their professor or coach looking on them and giving them opinions and tips, but getting the opinions and tips from the outside looking in, which multiple sets of eyes will see the same thing completely different, especially based on what that professor's game is. And I think that's going to be an amazing tool that will help the jiu-jitsu community. And I honestly, I know we talked about this before too. I really hope that there's something we could, I could get you and Christian in touch with, and the belt checker connected to that, the software for, critiquing, and even your software for your tournaments, because again, you both could easily piggyback off each other, and it could be a tremendous benefit, for both organizations.
Yeah, it's coming. I mean, now doing podcasting with these, we've done a few already, and talking to people, and just traveling with Kasai and getting to see the community out there. Like you said, there's a void out there, and I think this is going to be the next thing. So, but yeah, we'll definitely. I think we got a lot more to come. Love to talk to Christian and yourself again.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, man. So make sure you guys, everybody, make sure you follow Jay Pages on all socials. They can just search for Jay Pages, right?
Yeah, just search for me. I got a bunch. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, Twitter. Not too many Jay Pages out there. So
yeah, you got a lot of affiliations, guys, and he's got an instructional on BJJ Fanatics now, and to Sandman, all about chokes. Just an all-around great guy for the sport.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the kind words.
Really follow him up. He's got a lot of great content on there too. And then, so yeah, Jay, we'll have you on again. Make sure you stick around for a few minutes after we close out here. Just got
for sure.
But yeah, guys, make sure you subscribe, like, share this, and follow Jay. Let's check out his instructionals. Let's support each other. Let's keep cross training. Let's support Globetrotters. Everybody check out Belt Checker. I think Belt Checker is what everybody should be going on to register themselves. No matter what belt you are, you start jiu-jitsu tomorrow, jump on Belt Checker and register. There's a lot of different things on there you can utilize for your own training. So, all right, guys, have a good one. We'll see you till next time. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, bud. See ya.